Welcome to our weekly 3-Minute Therapy podcast. I'm Dr. Michael Edelstein, clinical psychologist, and my co-host is Mick Berry, and we both specialize in REBT, excuse me, rational emotive behavior therapy. And that's a type of therapy devised by Albert Ellis in the 1950s, which created a sea change in the therapy milieu, whereas before therapists focused on people's childhood to look at their emotional problems, whereas REBT, as Albert Ellis notably uh, educated us, is that our emotions don't come from situations like our childhood, um, especially childhoods where our parents were critical or not around or things like that. But our emotions come from our thinking at the present, our thinking about situations, not just situations themselves that cause our emotions. And when you have disturbed emotions such as anxiety, depression, anger, it comes from a particular type of thinking, and that's thinking in terms of demands: must, should, supposed tos, have tos. And there are three main demands: a demand on oneself: I must do well and get approval, and if I don't, I'm no good. A demand on others: others must treat me well, and if they don't, they're no good. And a demand on the impersonal conditions of one's life: my life must be fair, easy, and hassle-free, and if there are hassles in my life, I can't stand it, and that's awful. So when you have emotional disturbance, look for your must, look for your should, and then question, challenge, and contradict your must. There are no musts, no shoulds. Those are fictions. There are just our preferences, desires, hopes, and wishes, which, if not fulfilled, that leads to frustration, displeasure, disappointment, but never depression, anger, or anxiety. Mick, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, well, it doesn't necessarily lead to depression, anger, or anxiety. However, if we view it in a certain way, then we will lead ourselves to depression, anger, and anxiety.
Yeah. So you're pointing out that it's our thinking, our view, that causes our emotion, not situations.
Yeah.
Okay, today we're honored to have a guest, Eric Brenner, who is an actor, been in many movies. And Eric, do you want to tell us something about yourself and what you do?
Thanks for having me, Dr. Edelstein and Mick Berry and Chris Rossini. I appreciate you guys linking up this Zoom uh, call here. Well, I have had a background. I have a background in news radio, and I started up in San Francisco, which is where Dr. Michael Edelstein and I met back in the early 90s. And I was over at KGO News Talk 810 for a few years, and then Westwood One, San Francisco, reporting the news and the traffic, and getting into newsroom disputes with some of the very left leaning anchors and writers in that newsroom. And so there was those years were very, very good in San Francisco. And then when I moved to LA in 2010 permanently, I got hooked up and picked up by 790 KABC, reporting and writing the news as well. I joined the Screen Actors Guild in 1996, where I did make a trip down to LA in the mid 90s, and I was fortunate enough to get a small part on Days of Our Lives, which got me into the Screen Actors Guild. And I've been doing that on and off, mostly on, ever since. And it's not exactly an easy gig, but once you're in, you're in. And it's been some terrific. The last 10 years have been absolutely fantastic down here. So,
Oh, great, great. So since the subject of our podcast is rational emotive behavior therapy, uh, and dealing with emotional problems. Are there any emotional problems, anxiety, stress, anger, or depression that either you or you've noticed among fellow actors tend to have? And if you've had them, ways you've dealt with them?
Well, the thing is, when you're doing live radio, that's something completely different. That's a completely different animal. You better get it right. So there were many times, you may recall, I don't know if you were listening to KGO back then, Michael, where the broadcast didn't exactly go well. And you either make a choice to move past your mistake or mistakes and just keep going. The problem that someone in that situation might have is that they end up beating themselves up for making that mistake. And that could be probably the worst thing you can do in that situation is being so difficult on yourself, so hard on yourself for making a mistake during a live broadcast. So the best advice I can give to anyone in that situation is that you made the mistake, accept it, move on, and recover. It doesn't really happen that way when I'm on a film set or a TV show. We get different takes. But honestly, there have been a few instances where even on these shows that we get several different takes where I wasn't happy with the end result. And I can sit and beat myself up over it or just accept it and move on. The anxiety comes from making these mistakes, and the key and the victory comes is when you forgive yourself for making the mistakes, for being human, and just moving forward. That's been my experience here with this.
Right. And the anxiety doesn't come from making mistakes, as we were noting earlier, Eric, but from your musts about that. I must not make mistakes. And then if you overcome those musts, then it's a lot easier to move on. Mick?
Well, I wanted to say also, um, everything you're saying, Eric, makes sense. I'd like to be a little more specific. I think that what you mean by beating yourself up is telling yourself, I'm no good, I'm awful, I'm worthless, things are terrible, I'm never going to recover from this, and my career is ruined and all of my life is rotten. That would be is an extreme case of beating yourself up.
Yeah.
Correct. I usually don't take it to that level. But I have being working in these type of markets where you're in the number two, the number three media market in the country, meaning these are the markets that are the most sought after, the most heavily populated. Um, you're getting a lot of people listening. You're getting a lot of people watching, and this is some place to make a mistake like this. So it's more along those lines as well, that this is not Bakersfield. No offense to anyone listening in Bakersfield, which is a very small media market, but I'm saying this is LA, this is San Francisco. There's a lot of high-powered people listening, and I just made a very big mistake on the air. I said the wrong word. Maybe I mumbled. Maybe I had a weird look on my face. Those type of things are very easy to beat yourself up over. I usually don't say my career is ruined or anything like that, but I said, gee, the guy coming up next is probably going to knock it out of the park after this performance, that sort of thing.
Yeah, Mick?
Well, I'm curious, Eric, you said the number two or number three market. Isn't LA the number one market? I mean, LA and New York, it seems like, are the dual number one markets.
Correct. You're right. You're absolutely right. New York is number one. LA is number two, I believe, and they base that on population.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yes.
It seems to me they're fairly equal, but one and two are very
Yes.
close anyway.
You're right. You're
Um,
right.
yeah, but it also, I'm a little confused because it seems mumbling a word doesn't seem like that big a mistake on the radio, whereas saying something that's erroneous or just being out and out wrong, yeah, out and out
Right.
wrong about something, I think would be the biggest mistake you can make. However, we know from some radio personalities they seem to thrive on doing just that.
Right. No, I do. I've done a pretty good job. Pride myself in not putting out false information, not making mistakes like that. What I've done is I'm basing a lot of this on performance because people want a sharp person reading the news. They want someone who can enunciate the words, who uses the words properly. That's that sort of thing. That's specifically what I'm talking about in terms of performance, because I've been hard on myself over the years. Um, if a word is mumbled or if I'm not using it correctly or that sort of thing, just in a live read. But you're right. Someone putting out false information is probably one of the worst things you can do in the media, and I have not experienced that.
Yeah, Mick?
Well, I wanted to also ask Eric, you mentioned there isn't that much pressure or as much pressure when you're filming. I haven't done as much film work as you, but the film work that I have done, I've found, I agree with you, that you always get to do it again. If it doesn't go well, just
Right.
trash that video and do it again. I always find personally, I like working in film and because the people I'm working with don't expect me to get it in one take. And I often am excited, wow, if I can get this in one take, they're going to be impressed. And I've been on some film sets where I can see the tension from the director and the producer visibly dissipate in their lack of worry because I'm nailing a lot of things on one take and we'll do something in one take. Okay, let's do one for safety. And we end up saving time. And in the course of the day, we get ahead of schedule and I can see the smiles appear on their faces. And I just enjoy that because now this doesn't have anything to, this is, I'm not, I don't have a problem with anxiety, but I think because I'm so unworried about, I don't have to get it in one take, makes it easier to get it in one take and makes it easier for me to do a really good job.
I agree with you, and there is a lot. Those pressures go away, I think, because of the aspect that it's not live, that you're getting some chances, several takes to get it right. But the pressure that one puts on itself themselves to get it right, I think is a very big mistake, and I think that possibly I think that's what you're getting at, Mick. That I must get this right. I have to get this right now. They're not going to hire me anymore if I don't get it right. You don't want to be the guy that shows up, doesn't know your lines, not taking proper direction. So the less you say that to yourself, I must get this right. I should get it right on the first take. Those are very big mistakes to make in this business. And I definitely do everything I can not to drill that in, not to say that to myself during each take. I do the best I can, and it usually works out very well, thankfully.
Yeah. Now, as opposed to live performing on stage, I do stand-up comedy. I'm pretty sure you don't do stand-up comedy, right?
Not yet.
There's
We'll
always
see after this podcast. I might have to. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Seriously.
Judging
But
from
the
your
thing about
last remark, Eric, I think you'd be good at stand-up comedy.
Thank you.
yeah, yeah, and the thing is, it's stand up. The audience knows when it doesn't laugh, and so if you tell a joke and it doesn't get a laugh, you're really exposed. But also on stage work, you've done some stage plays.
I've done one. Yes, I've done one or two.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're doing it live. You only have a chance to get it right, or you don't even think of getting it right because it
Right.
can go in so many different ways. There's a certain area that you want to float in and stay within of, more or less doing it in a way that it works, but it's never going to be exactly the same, and you don't even want it to be exactly the same. So, anyway, live performing, I've found when there are mistakes, if you deal with the mistakes, the audience ends up liking it even more. And there are some things that happened when you're performing live that if you make a mistake, it ends up being superior. I'm thinking of one thing with Clarence Darrow, who was a defense attorney. Are you old enough to know about Clarence Darrow?
I don't know the name, but go
He
ahead.
was defending somebody against the death penalty, and he's given his final speech to the jury, and he forgot what he was going to say. So he just turned and pointed to the defendant, and then he remembered what he was going to say. And the guy was acquitted. And when the trial was all over, one of the jurors said the thing that made it definitive for me was that moment when he turned and pointed to the juror, and he himself had actually forgotten what he was going to say, and he did that because he needed to buy a few seconds to do this. And now that's obviously not theater, but often the live mistake ends up giving rise to something really terrific if you deal with it and not tell yourself, I shouldn't make a mistake. When we're performing live, mistakes are almost, nothing ever goes completely the way we envision it to go. It just doesn't.
That's true. And Neil, again, my background is radio, and the auditions that basically that mainly I focus on are voiceover auditions. So the live aspect that you're speaking of, the stand-up comedy routine, I have not really experienced yet, but I would strongly recommend anyone who's doing that to follow Mick Berry's advice just now on this. And I absolutely see what you're saying, that a mistake, you can parlay that into something pretty good, or at least something that would draw the audience in a positive way. I remember when I was at KABC in 2014 down here, Larry Elder was hosting the program, his program, and they went to a live shot of me covering the Colby fire down here out by Irwindale. They had there were very bad fires down here, and he had asked me a question about the arson suspect that was just arrested, and I didn't have the answer, and it was kind of an interesting question. He asked, the suspect has a medical marijuana card. Is that true, Eric? And I said, Larry, I don't know if he has a medical marijuana card. I thought it was kind of a funny question asking me that particularly. And I just, I said, Larry, I just don't know, but I'll look into it. And he said, okay, you go ahead and look into it. So it was kind of, it did turn into something where he put me right on the spot on live radio. This is a national guy with one of the biggest listenerships in the history of talk radio, and I didn't have an answer for him. So we kind of made a joke of it in terms of, let me go find out. And it ended up that he was actually right when I did ascertain that information. So I've experienced some of that, but not to the level that you're speaking of. On a stage, live on a stage where people are actually in the room. I would think that would add to some of these shoulds and musts that I must get this right. If I don't make this funny, this mistake, they're going to give me or write a bad review. They're going to say he choked. All these things factor in to whether you're going to turn your head into spaghetti live in front of an audience, or you're going to smooth this over and show them who the real Mick Berry is or the real Eric Brenner is, and turn on some personality when things maybe don't go right.
Yeah. I'm thinking of a particular example. I've got a few, but the one I'll mention is Michael Edelstein and I wrote a book on stage fright, and I interviewed Olympia Dukakis, and we were talking about what you do in the event of a mistake. And she said, well, I had a big mistake happen to me. I was performing, I think it was a play about Golda Meir. I'm not sure though, but it was a one-woman show. And she got on stage and she said 30 seconds into it, she couldn't remember her lines. And she sat there for a notable amount of time. And then she said to the audience, I'm up. And she left the stage. And the stage manager said, what's the matter? Well, I couldn't remember. He gave her the lines and he said, go back out there. She said, I can't go back out there. She walked back out there. Everybody applauded. She continued to do the play, but she said they liked her even more under those circumstances.
I have a question for Dr. Edelstein, if that's okay. I know I'm not. Am I supposed to ask a question here? Is that
Yeah,
okay?
yeah. You
Whatever you
must
want.
ask a question, right, Nick?
Okay. Okay. So how would you recommend dealing with that? Like when Larry Elder asked me that question, I had no. I mean, what other way would Dr. Edelstein have handled a question like that?
Well, the first step is what you tell yourself about it. And the best way to view it is I made a mistake, but it doesn't make me a bad person. I did a bad thing, but that's not the rating of my total self. So don't condemn yourself, don't put yourself down, and go on from there. And even as Mick, you were saying, that if you just say, I made a mistake and go on, or just forgot what I was going to say and just go on, you appear to be more human, and more of your listeners or viewers could identify with you. So that would be my recommendation, Mick.
And I wanted to mention another instance, actually. Uh, I saw Arturo Sandoval. I don't know if either of you have heard of him. Fabulous jazz trumpet player. Now he's Arturo Sandoval, so he has the latitude to attempt to experiment on stage, and he'll do these cadenzas, which are solos where the whole band stops and it's him by himself. And I would see this guy, the whole audience saw this guy going for notes that he might not hit. And sometimes he wouldn't hit the note and he'd stomp his foot in frustration. And this is a guy who's really one of the most renowned jazz trumpet players in the world. He did not care if he went ahead and tried something and it didn't work. Now, he had the stature where and the capability where he's throwing all this unbelievable world-class jazz to where the whole audience's jaw is dropping. But he didn't just settle for appearing to be brilliant. He was doing things that he wasn't sure he could achieve, and sometimes he would fail at it in front of the entire crowd, and he didn't care. And I think I appreciated what he was doing, and I know a lot of people in the audience were appreciating what he was doing. Certainly didn't hurt the guy's career. He's still Arturo Sandoval. So there's a guy who was really just going for stuff and making mistakes in front of the crowd because he wanted to stretch out and do things that would make the performance interesting for him.
He's a very big guy. He's very, very well respected. I also have another example to give if I have time here. On Days of Our Lives, the part was French waiter. Now, anyone who knows me knows I do not speak French, and I couldn't fake a French accent for TV. But here they casted me in the role of French waiter, and the part was basically I was booked as an extra on the show, and the director, Randy Robbins, may he rest in peace, really liked me, took a liking to me, and he said, "Look, I'm going to give you a line." It was my first week in Los Angeles. It was 1996. I was here 1 week, and this happened. I had mailed my headshot into Days of Our Lives on a Thursday. By Tuesday, the casting director called, asked me if I wanted to be on the show. It was an unbelievable time. And I got on the set, and he said, "All right, I'm going to give you this line. You're the French waiter. This is what you have to say. Mais oui." It was 2 words, whatever. And I looked at him and I said it, and he said, "No, forget it. You can't, it doesn't sound right." And he walked away. and I ran after him on the set. And he said, "Excuse me, Randy." And I looked him in the face and I said, "I really need this." And he said, "Fine, grab one of the actresses, go into the dressing room there, and not the dressing room, in one of the rooms, in the green room, and work this out." And I did it, and I did it, and I did it. And she just said, "Just take a deep breath because you're not even breathing from the diaphragm." And I went in there, and I read the line on the second take. I got it right, and it was kind of more like a sneeze. It sounded like a "mais oui." I just kind of I got it right though. It sounded like a sneeze, and I got the line, and I got into the union that way. So my point is if You're not performing right. If you're not that convincing the first time, I don't think it hurts to ask someone to give you a second chance on this. Would you agree, Mr. Berry? Would you agree on that?
Yeah. Call me
It
Rick.
doesn't hurt. What the most they can say that Randy Robbins could have said at that moment was no. We're giving it to someone else.
Yeah.
So I think.
Eric,
Go ahead.
sorry to interrupt. We're going to get cut off
I
shortly.
wanted to say one other
So,
thing about that, though. I think
Make it quick, please.
you were really exposing yourself by doing that, which was good.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Eric Brenner, actor and performer. That was fascinating to me, who knows nothing about this at all. And Eric, do you have a website or a way people can find out more about you?
Yes, I do. IMDb, Eric Brenner, the real Eric Brenner on TV on IMDb. That's my Internet Movie database page, and also Eric Brenner on TV on Twitter and Instagram.
Okay, thanks so much, Eric Brenner. That was fascinating to me. Thank you, Mick, for joining in with your experience acting. And I'm Dr. Michael Edelstein, clinical psychologist. Thank you, Chris Rossini, our tech engineer. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed this. Suggest subjects, volunteer. If you'd like to be a guest, looks like Eric survived, so you will too if you're a guest. And subscribe to the 3-Minute Therapy podcast to do what, Mick?
To stay on the rational side of acting and life.
Great. Thank you.